Oh yes, and welcome back to the Irish Abroad Show. We are back for season two. We were such a hit and success in season one, Paul. They said they'll bring us back again for the sequel. We are back up and running for the 2022-2023 season. Not only just a new season, you may have also noticed a new day of the week. We usually came to you on a Thursday, even last year. On a Wednesday this week, and hopefully for the foreseeable future, who knows, maybe well into the springtime to accommodate, of course, the fact that we have numerous Irish sides involved in European action tomorrow evening, and we would definitely want to be watching that. So we're going with a Wednesday evening uh, for this week. We are going live, so don't be afraid to get your questions or any comments or anything else. And we'll try and call out over the course of the next half an hour. Paul, it's good to see you. I think it was last May. Liverpool still had dreams, I think, of winning at least a treble, if not a quadruple back then. Obviously didn't end that way, but good to see you. How did you find the summer? We are just saying off air. It was probably a bit of a weird summer. Obviously, it was great probably having the internationals in June. That took up a couple of weeks. Ireland, obviously, were top heavy with 4 games, mixed bag, ended on a high. Then it was a bit of a lull, really wasn't there for the rest of June into July. Back up and running with the, I suppose, the return of European qualifiers, the Champions League and Conference League over the last couple of weeks. The League of Ireland resumed even after its midsummer break as well. So how would you find the last kind of 2 months without, I suppose, English kind of and European domestic football?
Obviously, the League of Ireland has kept us going, and it's been fantastic. But it's great to have the English football on alongside, as well as the European football as well. It gives you something else to watch. You think of the League of Ireland before the European games; it's over come 9:45 on Friday evening a lot of the time. So, besides maybe when Sligo play at home on the Saturday or Longford play at home on the Saturday. So yeah, it's great to have it back and great to see so many transfers, so many Irish lads moving across, and so many lads still playing for their clubs as well. So looking forward to getting stuck into it over the next few weeks and months. And look, we have a mid-season tournament this year as well, which should
Yeah.
bring a lot of joy. Even though I don't agree with it, I think it's pointless. But um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to get back into it, and I do like keeping myself up to date with the study as well. So yeah, happy to be back, and it's great to see yourself again, Jer.
Yeah, it's mad. Like I was just even looking through when I was doing this week's report. And not only maybe so in terms of debuts, but it was mad to see how many players obviously who maybe featured in different leagues have crossed over last year. Like for instance, last year we used to bring you a lot from Bulgaria and Belgium. We won't be doing that this year, but we'll be touching in obviously to Italy with Aaron Conley and Liam Corrigan. Hopefully seeing a little bit more of Germany this year as well. Obviously, we'll still always have your favourite league, the MLS as well. Um, so yeah, so it's interesting kind of times ahead. Just before I suppose we dive into the football, did you get up to anything else over the summer months away from football? Any nice trips or anything else like that?
I was just across the water in Manchester and Liverpool with the girlfriend. That's it. Nothing else. Not a big fan of the sun, so we went across to the two of the least sunniest places you can imagine. So yeah, good for going out though. But yeah, look, that's all I done. What about yourself?
Yeah, decent summer. Still obviously hope to make the most of it over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, I was over in Poland for that Ukraine game. Made a good week or so out of that. Was in Madrid. There for a weekend about 3 or 4 weeks ago as well. So probably opposite from yourself. Took in a lot of sun as well. Thankfully, avoided a sunburn in Madrid, which wasn't easy. And temperatures nearly touching 40 degrees, and in the central city as well, like that. But yeah, still hoping maybe I might get another trip away, maybe even start taking in, as I mentioned, some of the continental football, that it is all back up and running. And as of course, alluded to a bit of an earlier start this year because, as you alluded to, the World Cup coming up in November, still finds a bit of a mad one to get your head around. But we'll touch straight in and we'll go with the Championship. And it got back underway last Friday night with two teams who have results that turned out differently. Could have actually been a Premier League fixture this season. Burnley relegating the final day, Huddersfield losing out the playoff final to Huddersfield. Josh Cullen had a debut to remember for his new club. He was the Sky Sports man of the match for the Clarets, and they got their first, they started their first campaign in the Championship in 7 years with 1-0 win away to Huddersfield as well. The Irish Republic of Ireland international did also pick up a yellow card in this game. And 19-year-olds Dara Costello, I'm not 100% sure, is it Galway or Limerick? It's somewhere there kind of around the southwest of Ireland. Maybe some of the comments might let us know. He made his Burnley debut in this game as well. Of course, he did feature on the bench for the final 7 games of last season, as I mentioned, in the Premier League club. But he, by all accounts, as well had a debut to remember as well, and a good start for Vincent Company and for Burnley on their I suppose even though they have a lot of turnover in the summer, obviously off the field issues as well in terms of finance, you're still expecting them to be heavily in the promotion push this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think Vincent has brought in a lot of players he knows from Belgium, as well as some experience from around the league as well. Look, they're going to be strong. We know with Burnley, they're always tough to beat. Now they've got one of the better defenders ever to play in the Premier League, really managing them. So they're probably only going to get better, really. Um, yeah, it's great to see Josh get man of the match as well. Fantastic from him, and great to see Dara get his debut. In particular with Josh Cullen, I think he's well capable for higher than the
Yeah.
championship as well. A tough decision to leave Anderlecht, considering they were going to challenge to get into Europe again. But he's followed his manager. Vincent Company obviously fancies him as a player. Long may it continue, and hopefully the next time he's on Sky, he picks up that man of the match award again.
Yeah, we're only 8 minutes into the first episode of the new season, but I'm already going to come out with an outlandish and a bold statement. And who knows, we may be looking back at this in January and saying that was a good call. I think Josh Cullen could be on the move again in January. I genuinely think I agree with you. I think he should be playing the Premier League. I think he's good enough now. Look, I'm not going to get carried away with myself. I do think he's probably looking at a team probably no higher than 15th, but I definitely think he's good enough to be in the Premier League. And I do think if he can continue that performance we've seen Friday night, doesn't surprise anyone who was regularly seen
Yeah.
in the green shirt since March or pretty much since Stephen Kenny's taken over, never mind just March of last year. And I think if he can continue a form like that, he will be possibly a Premier League player in January. But I definitely think he will definitely be a Premier League player this time next season, whether it's through a move or Burnley make that jump back up. I'll get through the rest of the championship as well. Quiet enough in terms of goal involvement. Chiedoze Ogbene did enjoy a good start to the season by scoring a header in Rotherham's 1-1 draw with Swansea City. Good start for Rotherham, up from League One. Not a bad result to draw against the Swansea City team, who probably by their own standards were disappointing last season, but will have aspirations of being back in the promotion mix this season. George Kelly, who of course scored on his Rotherham debut in that game that clinched promotion last season, he features for fouling of 25 minutes of this game, and Michael Obafemi 90 minutes and Ryan Manning 19 minutes also lined out for the Swans. Callum O'Dowda and Andrew Omabandelli both started as the Bluebirds recorded a surprise 1-0 victory over Norwich. Callum O'Dowda lining out for Cardiff, Andrew Omabandelli for Norwich. Good to see both them playing, because there were two players whose seasons were massively interrupted by injuries last season. And speaking of injuries, Adam Ida wasn't in the Norwich matchday squad for this game, and it's expected it's probably going to be the end of the month before he returns. Remember, he picked up an injury last February, I think it was, just after the winter break, when just himself and Norwich seemed to be hitting into a run of form. They never really got going after that. Norwich, I think they only won one more game between then and the end of the season, as they were comprehensively relegated. James McLean and Will Keane both started as Wigan marked their return also to the championship with a 0-0 draw against local rivals Preston at home. Alan Browne was also on the pitch for the entirety of this game for the visitors, while Robbie Brady and Troy Parrott both played 71 minutes of this contest for Preston. Brilliant to see with Robbie Brady, because I think you could count on one hand the amount of times he even played for Bournemouth last season. Never mind started. So brilliant to see he got such a long run as well of minutes under his belt. And Troy, obviously, interested to see how he gets on. That the season down in League One, done him quite well last year. Probably wasn't maybe mature and physically ready enough for the championship 2 seasons ago with Millwall, but hopefully now he will kick on this time around with Preston. Gavin Kilkenny and Will Smallbone were both sprung from the bench for Stoke City in their 2-0 defeat away to Millwall. Interesting to see Dan McNamara actually didn't even feature in this game for Millwall. I think correct saying he was their player of the season last year. Now, maybe it was injury. Was it player or young player of the season last year?
I think it was young player, and he was second in the player of the
Yeah.
year, I think.
But he did feature for them last night in the EFL Cup. They actually surprisingly went out to League One side Cambridge City. So maybe he was just lacking a little bit of fitness going back into that. Scott Hogan started for Birmingham as they drew 0-0 away to Luton. Of course, their manager now, of course, is former Republic of Ireland assistant manager John Eustace. So a new beginning there for Birmingham after a troubled couple of years. Hopefully there'll be a lot more steadier times for them on the pitch and even off the pitch more. So Mark Sykes featured for just under an hour on his Bristol City debut, of course, making a step up from League One, joining from Oxford in the summer, as they lost 2-1 at home to, I think it was actually even away, to Hull City. Jeff Hendrick made a losing start to his Reading career as they went down 1-0 away to Blackpool. CJ Hamilton came on this game for Blackpool, and Shane Long also came off the bench to make his second debut for Reading after rejoining them in the summer from after he was released by Southampton. Jason Malumbi got an assist in West Brom's 1-1 draw with Middlesbrough. That game was away from home for them. Darragh Lenihan also marked his debut for Middlesbrough in this contest, of course, since joining on a free from Blackburn in the summer. That was a strange one. Blackburn let him go on a free, captain for so long. And again, without being accused of sounding biased and going by the standard of his performance as well in that game in Poland against Ukraine, another player I think who should be in the Premier League. And Darragh O'Shea also started this game for West Brom. Good to see. Last season, obviously, started the season so well, then picked up an injury in the Portugal game and never really kind of fully got going. And Kieran Clark, John Egan, and Enda Stevens all formed part of a back five for Sheffield United in their 1-0 defeat away to Watford on Monday night. I actually watched this game. Enda Stevens did actually go off with an injury early on in the second half. Now, I don't think it was anything kind of serious, and given the fact that the September international break isn't to the end of the month, I don't think that'll be anything to concern Stephen Kenny. Anything else there for the championship that I might have missed out on, Paul, or anything you maybe want to touch on and talk about yourself?
You didn't miss out on anything, but just about Jason Malumbi. Did you see the ball he put through before the goal for West Brom? Brilliant ball
Yes,
through
yeah.
to brilliant pass. And he's unlucky that it's not claimed as an assist because he's basically set up for the cross straight away, and it's into John Swift, who buries it. Fair play to him on that. And just to mention, Chiedoze Ogbene continues his good goal scoring form from last season. Fantastic to see. Another man, like you mentioned with Josh Cullen, who might be on the move in January if he keeps up the good form throughout this season. Someone who we actually thought would leave Rotherham in the summer, but he didn't. So fair play to him on that. And that's it. Really, you've gone through everything there.
Just actually, I actually just skipped over one piece of information. Sorry myself. Shadipo, of course, he returned to the QPR side after he spent the course of the season on loan. Again, an injury hit season on loan with League One side Sheffield Wednesday. So good to see him come straight back into QPR and straight back into the starting team in their 1-0 defeat away to Blackburn Rovers. And also underage international Sinclair Armstrong, who featured on the bench from numerous times last season, also came on this game to make his QPR debut. No Jimmy Dunn featured. He was in the matchday squad. Again, I suppose you have to remember, slightly earlier start of the season, he was involved in the Ireland camp in the summer. Now, he was a very late call-up towards the end, but still that took him up to the mid-June. Might be just a little bit behind in terms of preparation. I certainly wouldn't be worrying too much. You know, obviously, not seen the likes of him, Sean McLaughlin, Dan McNamara, these type of players who were all excellent for their clubs last season. It's a 46-game season. There'll be plenty of time. I think that's pretty much it then from the championship list. Do you have any last final comment, or do you want to move on to League One then?
No, I can move on to League One then. Anyway, I've got a couple of bits from that. We'll start off with Derby County, full of Irish players. Whether they'll all be there come the end of the transfer window, we shall see. Where do I have that written? Sorry, yeah, Conor Hourihane obviously got the winner on his debut for Derby. They beat Oxford 1-0. Other players involved were James Collins, who had a load of chances, was unfortunate not to score. Jason Knight, a man who will be in high demand as we move on throughout the season, linked with Werder Bremen not too long ago as well. Aaron Cashin, who was very impressive for the Irish under-21s in the last international break, and they have their playoff coming up soon against Israel in the same international break as the two Ireland games against Scotland and Armenia. And I think that's everyone, is it? They beat Oxford 1-0. So a good start for the careers of James Collins and Conor Hourihane at Derby. Daryl Horgan and Conor Shaughnessy both playing for either side in this one. Played in Wycombe 3, Burton 0. Horgan playing for Wycombe and Conor Shaughnessy playing for Burton Albion. Ronan Curtis, Joe Rafferty and Sean Raggett played in Portsmouth's 3-3 draw away at Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday, probably the game of the weekend in all divisions there. Another big one to mention is Promise O'Mashare. He's just moved over to Fleetwood from Bowes, and he got an assist on Saturday in his league debut. But unfortunately, Fleetwood fell to Port Vale 2-1 defeat there. A player who I've seen a lot of this year, very, very good at holding up the ball, gets a lot of assists, gets a lot of goals, strong in the air, strong lad. He'll do very well with Fleetwood, and he'll do very well in League One as well. Luke O'Connell and Conor McCarthy both played in Barnsley's 1-0 defeat away at Plymouth Argyle. A long trip there for the Barnsley lads. Unfortunate to get the defeat. Ryan Delaney, Dylan Connolly and Aidan O'Brien all played in Morecambe 0, Shrewsbury 0. The first two playing for the home side, and Aidan O'Brien coming on as a sub for Shrewsbury Town. Paddy O'Connor, Anthony Scully, and Pierce Sweeney all played in Lincoln's 1-1 draw with Exeter City. The first two playing for Lincoln, and Pierce Sweeney playing for Exeter City. Marcus Harness, who was on the move in the summer, he's gone to Ipswich Town. He played in their 1-1 draw with Bolton at Portman Road. And finally, from what I have anyway, and then we can see if you have anything else, MK Dons lost 1-0 away at Cambridge. Darragh Burns got his debut. He only played 8 minutes, but he got his debut, which is good to see. Warren O'Hara is still there, and Connor Grant, new signing from Rochdale, played in that as well. So that's all I have from League One. Do you have anything to add there, Jer?
Oh, that's pretty much everything that I had there. Just, yeah, Promise I'm a share, probably the one that really kind of caught the eye the most, because probably of all the players that moved over from the League of Ireland summer, he was the only one who actually started and hit the ground running with an instant impact. I always remember as well, similar to yourself, it was the COVID hit season, the reduced season 2020. I would have watched a lot of bowls that season. That was kind of the season that he really broke on. And Paul used to always give me a lot of stick. That I was used to always kind of mention his name quite a lot, but that's because he just always stood out. And I kind of knew from an early day then that, look, he might maybe go all the way to quite the top of being an Ireland international, but I definitely think he had what it takes to go over and take his game to another level by making it in England. And, you know, early days yet, but a good and encouraging and promising start for him as well. And yeah, good to see with all the Derby contingents, or all the Irish contingent at Derby. The Derby, obviously, we know a club of their size shouldn't be in the third tier of English football, but look at Sunderland, look at, you know, Charlton. These clubs end up down there, even Ipswich. It could take a long time to get out, but hopefully it won't take them too long, and hopefully they can get themselves sorted off the pitch as well. Good encouraging start there. Jason Knight, you know, as good as it was like to see a big Irish contingent Derby, he's one player by the end of this window we don't want to see at Derby. That's just purely because a man of his talent and a player of his capabilities should not be playing third tier football in England. He's definitely well capable, as he's shown at playing in England's second tier. I think he's even been linked strongly now and moved to Birmingham, which wouldn't be a bad move. They've had their issues themselves over the last kind of couple of years, but they're hoping to kind of to sort of solidify themselves and be a bit more stable as well. Just even on kind of League One, maybe just before we move on, it's an indication, I suppose, maybe where English football has gone at the moment, and maybe still at the end of the day, probably an indication where we are as a national team, that we are relying on League One players quite a lot. We've seen how well they've kind of done last year for like Troy Parrish. You know, he's gone up to the Championship now, signed an extra deal at Spurs. Gavin Bazunu is a Premier League player. Chiedoze Ogbene, more so through his Ireland form, then established himself in the Rotherham team, got promotions like James McLean. Who do you think? I think this season could be this player that could really stand out from League One and kind of be like a Chiedoze Ogbene, be that Troy Parrott that can establish himself in the Ireland squad, kind of spring themselves from nowhere. I think for me, probably the obvious one would be Anthony Scully. I think he's probably hard done by not to get a call up, not to have a cap. He had a pretty good season again last season. I think he actually even scored more goals than Troy Parrott, just for some reason. Just doesn't seem to get quite a look in. And let's be honest, we're not blessed with finishers. So I think he definitely could be the main player. I think for the likes of Darragh Burns, Promise I'm a share, Diamandre, I think if they can just even set themselves in and get a decent run of games as we're moving over from the League of Ireland. Also, you have to remember as well, they've been training and playing since last January. They haven't had much of a break, so it's probably going to be a bit of a breakthrough to kind of break the ceiling, kind of break the glass kind of ceiling season for them. But would you agree with Anthony Scully, or who do you think maybe could possibly be a surprise addition, in not just in September, but going forward into the qualifiers for Euros for Stephen Kenny, possibly from this league?
Well, as I mentioned when I was reading out, Aaron Cashin, very impressive at centre half. I know it's tough to break into that defensive unit, but even getting into the squad, I know they'll want them for the 21s, but I was very impressed in both those games against Bosnia and Montenegro. If he can do it again, helps them to qualify in the next round. I'm sure Stephen Kenny will be looking at him in the upcoming internationals after that, if not September, because we know they're not afraid to call up players, even though they're part of the under-21 squad. Very impressive. And not the biggest defender in the world either, but is very impressive and will be part of that Derby setup alongside Curtis Davis in centre-half, which is a good player to be playing with as well. Good experienced player who has a lot of experience, particularly with Midlands clubs. I think he's played for every one now besides Wolves. So, Luca Connell with the move to Barnsley, I mean, he was good. It's a player with a lot of expectation. He was good for Queen's Park last year. They got promoted into the Scottish Championship. I mean, he should be doing well at this level. We've seen him do well at a higher level with Bolton, wasn't they? Were in the Championship at the time, or was it League One? So yeah, there's another player again that we should be watching a lot of. And then the usual, the likes of Ronan Curtis, still down there with Portsmouth, always performs when he has to. has been called up several times. I mean, can he finally help Portsmouth get back up to the Championship? We shall see. And they're the players I'd be looking at, the usual ones, the names that you can rally off like that. So yeah, and Marcus Harness at Ipswich as well, another big club. Um, yeah, I mean, talented last year, got a lot of goals, a lot of assists, always involved for Portsmouth as well. So yeah, that's just a few. I've basically named the whole players we've already talked about, haven't I?
Yeah, just one other thing as well before we wrap up in League One as well. Obviously, we predominantly feature and focus on players on this show last season. That's because we had no Irish managers in the Football League after Mick McCarthy got sacked by Cardiff back in September. But we do have an Irish manager in League One this season. Mark Kennedy is over Lincoln City. Could have been Stephen Bradley, but it ended up being
Mm-hmm.
Mark Kennedy as well. So that's something we'll kind of keep an eye out for as well. Apart from him and Jim Goodwood, he's only really two managers out there at the moment that will probably be featured in the show. So best of luck with him for the season ahead. I'll quickly run through League Two. To be honest, I've literally only just kind of looked out for players that had any kind of goal involvement in terms of listing out minutes or anything else like that. So maybe if you more to add, feel free. The only bit of information I have is Paddy Madden, who we touched on the show a bit last season with his exploits in non-league for Stockport County. They obviously got promoted, and even though while Stockport made a losing return to the Football League, going down 3-2 to Barrow, Paddy Madden had an involvement in both goals, scoring one and an assist in the other, as I mentioned, as they were just on the wrong side of that 5-goal thriller against Barrow. But again, we talked about someone like Luca Connell. I know it's a long time ago now at the stage, but here is a player who's proven that she can even do a higher level, going back to all them days when he got Yeovil up to the Championship.
Yeah, definitely. Paddy Madden. I was listening to stats the other day. Apparently, he gets a goal every 2 games for Stockport, which it's probably less. I don't know what I heard, but I was watching the highlights the other day. He set a great record for Stockport. Pretty sure he was top scorer in the conference last year. A bit of money behind Stockport at the minute. I know he's probably one of the highest paid players at the club and would be one of the highest paid players in League Two. So he's going to get a hat full of goals. They've also got a couple of other players, not Irish, but the likes of Anthony Sarcevic left Bolton, who'd just been promoted to go down to Stockport. So there's a bit of a backing behind them. They'd be disappointed with that start, but it's only 1 game. There's still 45 to go.
Yeah, but you take the example of Salford City. I think this is now their fourth season in League Two. Like the
Mm-hmm.
expectation was when they got promoted back in 2019, and they had a massive backing behind them. Like they were able to get Adam Rooney to drop down from the Scottish Premiership to the conference actually the season before they got promoted. There was expectation, they're going to blow this football league. They're still in the fourth tier of English football, so it doesn't always instantly automatically guarantee that just because you got a bit of backing behind you. It's funny, I was actually watching the Fever Pitch documentary last night about the early days of the Premier League, and about the same thing with Blackburn Rovers. Okay, it did happen. They did go on to win the Premier League within 3 years of being promoted, but yeah, like by this stage, I think if you were to talk to the class in '92, they didn't think Salford would still be in the League Two. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works out for Stockport. Do you have anything else to add from League Two before we might move on else?
I just had the lads at Mansfield again. Stephen McLaughlin, who had a great season last year from
Yeah,
left back. Stephen Quinn and John Joe O'Toole all played in, as you mentioned, Salford's 2-0 win against Mansfield. Mansfield, who just missed out on promotion by the playoffs last year. I think they got a red card in the final against Port Vale, and Port Vale just ran away with it. I think they were in the final. Were they, Mansfield?
they got to the final. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They just
McLaughlin was heroic in their semi-final victory. I think was it against was it Northampton or someone else maybe?
Northampton Town, I think it was. Yeah, they were involved in the playoffs. God, it's only a few months ago. I can't even remember it, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so much information just being thrown at your head all the time. Anyway, that's the only other bit. I saw Gavin Holland played for Grimsby Town against Leighton Orient. They won the playoffs in the conference last season. They were beaten 2-0, unfortunately, but good to see Gavin back up in league football after leaving Hartlepool in, I think it was January last year, to go to Grimsby. Another big club, well, not a massive club, but another big club coming back into the league after being relegated. That's it from League Two. I can run through Scotland really quickly if you want.
Yeah, super. I might just get your favourite league, the MLS, set up as well then. So
I already have it done, Jer. I already have it
all right,
done.
super, super,
Oh,
super.
I
I
tell you,
can
well,
I can I can run through Scotland then if you want to run through the MLS. So
of course, I
because
can't wait.
I didn't quite get enough time just to get that in. We
Yeah,
don't actually have anything from the continent. AIK, I know, are actually still involved in Europe as well, in the Europa League, or not even Europa League, they're in the Conference League third round as well tomorrow. Yeah, but SAC didn't actually play for them last week. I can't remember the name of the team they bet, but it was a Czech Republic team that came from behind to win. They lost the first leg. He did feature in the first leg. They had no weekend game. They are going strong again this season. They're third in the league. I'm not actually 100% sure how far they are behind the league leaders, but yeah, it's been a bit more of a frustrating season for Saka. I've just been kind of following minutes and stuff like that. He's kind of struggled to get starting berths. He's struggled maybe to kind of see out games. Maybe just a little bit of kind of second season syndrome, like he hit the ground running so quickly last season. But good to see the AIK are still going strong in Europe, and who knows, it might offer more opportunities from. Just to quickly run through Scotland, and one player who used to always feature in our Rest of Europe roundup last year was Graham Carey. He's obviously moved back close to home. In the summer, he's joined St. Johnstone, and he made his debut for them in their 1-0 win away to St. Hibs, or against Hibs even. And Jake Doyle-Hayes came off the bench in that game for Hibs. Of course, who knows, if things have been different and Graham Carey did decide to move in the summer, he'd be come up against St. Pat's tomorrow evening. What an interesting tale that would have been. Alan Power, captain Kilmarnock, on his return to the club, literally only after leaving them a year previous to join St. Mirren. It's interesting when we get on to St. Mirren how the Irish contingent has actually dropped off from last season there. His return to Kilmarnock and Kilmarnock's return to Scottish Premiership ended in a 1-1 draw at home against Dundee United. Jake Carroll played 90 minutes for Motherwell in their 1-0 victory away to St. Mirren. I suppose, given everything that's happened there as well, with their manager Graham Alexander getting sacked after the Sligo Rovers defeat, it probably actually makes Sligo's result look even more impressive that Motherwell were then able to turn around and beat a team a couple of days later who've been pretty steady in the Scottish Premiership the last couple of years. Charlie Dunn and Joe Shaughnessy are now the only sole survivors left at St. Mirren from an Irish perspective, and they both started that game. Of course, Jim Goodwin was the manager this time last year. He's now gone to Hibs. Jay McGrath's left. Conor Ronan's gone back to Wolves. Interesting to see how that goes for him this season. And finally then, Johnny Hayes played every second in Aberdeen's 2-0 defeat away to Celtic. Of course, Jim Goodwin, now the manager there, his first full season charge, didn't really quite hit the ground running, it's fair to say, if we're being honest, when he joined there in the springtime. First full season, so hopefully things will pick up. And of course, the big news, transfer news from Scotland today, is, of course, Jamie McGrath has gone back to that league. He's joined Dundee United on loan for the rest of the season. Not really surprised. I thought that move to Wigan at the time looked like a good move. He got injured early doors, struggled to get back in the team, struggled to get kind of a run going. Probably maybe where Wigan were looking at from the point of view is like he hasn't really tasted much English football. Bit of a step, bit of a gamble to bring him into the Championship, a little bit undercooked. Let him go back down to Scotland and hopefully reunite his form, and who knows, be knocking on the door of Stephen Kenny. But just while we even talk about Scotland and stuff like that, like we'll talk about the example of Motherwell. Ross Tierney moves from Bowes in the winter. I think that's kind of his big move and his step up from the League of Ireland, and it's going to get him Ireland recognition, fair enough. He was with the under-21s before that, but he's part of a team that got comprehensively beaten by, let's be brutally honest, Sligo Rovers haven't exactly been shooting the lights out in the League of Ireland this season, by a mid-table team in the League of Ireland. And you're kind of thinking, but because Ross Tierney is with Motherwell, it's supposedly a higher profile league, he's going to get Ireland recognition. Should it start kind of raising the question that, like, hold on a second, like, you don't have to suddenly just move across the water and suddenly be recognised for Ireland. If you're doing it in the League of Ireland, I'm not saying every Irish player who's at Sligo Rovers should get Ireland recognition now, but it certainly does kind of raise that debate again, like.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of Scotland, you've got to look at the coefficient has obviously changed with Russia and stuff having to drop out because of what's going on, rightly so. But you look at the performance of Rangers in the last 3 or 4 seasons in Europe has got Motherwell that spot. They probably wouldn't have, and Celtic to an extent, but mainly Rangers. Like Rangers have got to the Europa League final, quarter final, last 16. Celtic have got to the last 32 a couple of times, and it was mainly because last year they dropped out of the Europa League to go into the Conference League. So it's as much as we don't want to give them credit, a lot of it is down to them. Motherwell wouldn't have been in Europe if it wasn't really for Rangers and the war in Ukraine. They had a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They went in thinking, Sligo are the minnow, Sligo are this, Sligo are that. They're beaten twice, and they're beaten easily twice. Simple as. Then they go and win on Sunday after they change the manager. I mean, does that mean it's the manager's fault? I heard the players coming out the other day saying it wasn't his fault. So, I mean, maybe the players just weren't shaking a leg. But look, fair play to Sligo. I've seen them a couple of times this year. They were disappointing against Shells and Bows, and they only drew with UCD away. Nothing taken away from UCD. UCD have got 3 great results against Sligo this season as well. Actually haven't lost to them at all. So not taken away from UCD there. But yeah, I mean, we're doing a lot better. Like, I think the Pats result is probably more impressive because you think that team beat Spurs last year. Spurs
They were
with
brutal
Conte as
though.
well. Yeah, yeah, they. I heard Forrester talking about them after, and he said they were exactly like Motherwell, had a bit of the
Yeah.
chip on the shoulder, stuff like that. Expect to go out, win handy. It's not like that in Europe against any team, even against the likes of Lincoln Red Imps from Gibraltar. Just using them as an example, they got into the Conference League group stages last year. Um, I'm pretty sure they won a game in the Champions League qualifiers this year. Just a game, not over the two legs, but just a game. So you can't take these teams lightly. If okay, you take Gibraltar lightly in the national team sense, maybe, but not in clubs. Anything can happen in clubs. Depends when your season is. Depends when this is. Our players are fit in the League of Ireland, whereas the Scottish players, I mean, I didn't even see Motherwell play a pre-season friendly yet. Maybe they did. No, they wouldn't have been in the
Scottish League Cup.
league. They wouldn't have been in the League Cup because they're in Europe. So yeah, I mean, it's got to be said. I mean, if you take our teams lightly, you're going to get beaten, and that'll be in the minds of these teams from now on.
I love how you say at international level you can take Gibraltar easy. I instantly have flashbacks to that campaign under Mick McCarthy when we stumbled to 2 victories over them. So the landscape
Still
is
two
kind of
wins. Still two wins.
still 2 wins, but like they weren't exactly goal
No, they weren't.
gruesome victories as we thought they might do to the goal difference. And like going even back to that point against Muir, it could be easy for me to be here and be biased. The Pats fans say, "Oh, unbelievable result, unbelievable achievement to beat this team that bet Spurs last year and got to the Europa Conference League." And don't get me wrong, I should say it was a fantastic achievement. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, Pats didn't actually win either game. They won a penalty shootout. Now, I'm not trying to play it down,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to lie. I went into the first leg. I thought Pats were going to get spanked, and I think
Yeah.
some of that was also down to the fact, similar to Sligo, Pats' league form this season has not been anywhere near good enough. They've been very, very poor. But quickly you realise after the first leg, okay, maybe they had a bit of a player turnover. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of Miura. But they were pretty average. Like Pats should have, like at the end of the day, without kind of sounding contradicting to myself, Pats should have battered them and definitely in Richmond and should have even won in 90 minutes over there as well. They missed some absolute sitters. Like, now don't get me wrong, I think it's going to be a massive step up against CSK Sevilla. I actually would give Sligo a better chance against Vikings than I would against CSK Sevilla. And going back as well to the coefficient thing with Scotland as well. But you look at it down through the years, apart from Celtic or Rangers, when is the last time a Scottish team even made the playoff round of a European competition? Never even mind got into the group stages. Like
I think the last time one of them got in the group stages was 2005, I think, and that was Hearts,
that's
from what I
bonkers years
read.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I think did St. Johnstone not play Galatasaray not too long ago? I don't know what round it was in, but they gave it a good go anyway, and they got beaten in the end. But I don't know if it was a playoff round or not. But it was something. So, but yeah, I'd back you up on that one. Yeah, I can't remember the last time. I think
Yeah.
I can remember Linfield going further in recent years in certain competitions than a Scottish side. If
Yeah.
that sums it up for you.
Linfield got to the playoff of the Europa League in 2019. And like again, I know everyone will look at Linfield and laughed them last week and they got battered 8-0 by Bodo Glint. And going back to the whole point about Motherwell, there's no question about it. They turned their nose up and kind of thought, oh, these are only part timers and a pub league and a farm league, and they probably think that of the League of Ireland and the Northern Irish League in general. But Linfield still bet Bodo Glint in the first leg of Windsor Park. Bodo Glint
Mm-hmm.
played Celtic off the park last season, and Celtic are
Mm-hmm.
streaks ahead of Motherwell. Like, don't get me wrong, I think overall, collectively, the Scottish League is still better. It's still a step up from ourselves, but it's kind of similar to a friend made to me. Like, the Welsh League is where it is because it doesn't have Cardiff and Swansea or even Wrexham and Newport in it. If they were in
Yeah,
it, there'd be more money, there'd be more TV money, there'd be more eyes on it. If
yeah,
Celtic and Rangers were to be taken away from that league, put into England, all the TV money goes, all the revenue, sponsorship, and everything else of that league will fall down, and you will quickly find that the Scottish League will be very similar to ourselves. So it's probably no major surprise. Overall, I think if Motherwell and Sligo Rovers will play again in a month's time or 2 weeks' time, Motherwell will probably win. If, take away Celtic and Rangers, the other 10 teams were to play the 10 Premier Division teams, more likely than not, probably 8 or 9, 7 maybe at best, or 7 Scottish teams will probably win out of the 10 games. Like, so don't kind of get too carried away by runs up, but at the same time, it also kind of thinks like, just because you get your move to Scotland doesn't mean suddenly you should be recognised for international recognition. If you're playing good enough at League of Ireland level, I'm not saying it should be a million miles away. Now, at the same time, I don't think there will be a League of Ireland player in Stephen Kenny's squad in September.
No, neither do I, unfortunately. But look, there is progress there, and it's clear to see. So
Yeah.
we motor on. I can run through what I got from America now. I've only got 2 bits, but
Grant,
if
'cause
you want to add in,
I think you're a bit tight against time anyway, so if you want to just fly through it, so.
it's just I have to join Gary and turn my sheet over to another show. I tell you, I'm doing more work than the RTE presenters at the minute. Um, we'll start off with Derek Williams, a man who is well known to the national setup. His LA Galaxy side lost 1-0 to FC Dallas on Saturday or something, I think. I'm not sure what day. And Austin FC, the team who finished bottom of the whole thing last year, they're flying this year. John Gallagher has reverted to left back or left wing back, and he got an assist as they beat Sporting Kansas City 2-0. So, striker turned into a left back, Jer. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I was actually just even looking at the MLS table there. They're second in the Western Conference. It probably just goes against everything you believe in football. A team that, technically speaking, should have been relegated last year, even though there's no such thing as a second-tier system in American football, or there's soccer, as they call it over there, even though there is, but it doesn't slide in with the MLS. Shouldn't be there, yet now they're second in the Premier Division. Imagine how the likes of imagine how poor Longford Town are feeling. Like, if there was a similar system in League of Ireland, would Longford Town be second in the Premier Division now? Probably not. They're looking like they're going to hang on to a playoff position in the first division. But striking conversion into wing back. It's interesting. It seems to be working well for him. Like, he's getting a lot of game time. He's looking there. He's regularly racking up 90 minutes. And it seems to be working well for Austin FC as well this season.
Yeah, definitely fantastic stuff. Hopefully they keep it going. Maybe John can bring it. I wonder, do they have medals over there? Probably don't, because they just give them to everyone for taking part. Maybe one of those things. But I think that's it. Unless you have anything else to add from America there.
No, that's the only 2 bits as well. Just seen Shane O'Neill was an unused sub as well for Toronto. He's been in and out of their team this season. They're well down, actually, near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. A team that not that long ago actually won that league. So it shows you how quickly things can flip in American sport.
Yeah, definitely. And sure, you don't get anything for winning the league over there. Remember that. Or do you? I don't know.
I don't know. We'll know in November when the league wraps up anyway. So.
Yeah, but then you go to the playoffs anyway.
That's what I mean. Well, yeah, because it's probably going to be earlier this year, because I think the end of the season is normally early November. But whether it's going to then break off the World Cup and then come back to playoffs, no one knows. The Americans themselves probably still don't even know yet.
They're going to do a Boxing Day special cup final hour or something, like, whatever they want to do. I think, do you maybe want to wrap it up there, or?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, next week's show will be a little bit more top heavy, because obviously we'll have the Premier League back. Obviously, we'll all be excited to see some of the new signings. Nathan Collins, but he's still in the Premier League with a new team of Wolves. We're interested to see how he gets on. Obviously, with Gavin Bazuna between the posts for Southampton even. Not sure what Matt Doherty's situation is yet in terms of his injury update and stuff like that. And likes of Shane Duffy as well, obviously, who hit the ground running early on with Brighton last season. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see as well. Obviously, you kick it all off. Hopefully, it might be a similar start to it was last season. Friday night, London opposition beaten by Brentford. This time it's Crystal Palace. Are you home or away?
Away. So it's a sitting duck 3-0 defeat.
It's all the same. And do you know what? I actually seen something the other day. Liverpool obviously against Fulham. Obviously, Liverpool have 1 or 2 slight injury concerns, mainly Diego Jota. I seen something the other day. Fulham have only 16 fit players. I remember the last time a team was really struggling to get fit players together for a first Premier League game of the season was Hull City all them years ago under Mike Phelan. First game up against the reigning champions of the time, then Leicester City. Hull won the game 2-1. So I'm a little bit scared and worried. Is history going to repeat itself? But hopefully not. Liverpool should have enough to kickstart the victory there, kickstart the new season with victory.
Yeah, definitely. Probably will. Looking forward to it. Can't say I'm looking forward to Friday. Absolutely dreading it. They've kicked off 3 of the last 5 years on Friday Night Football. Arsenal, one was a 4-3 thriller against Leicester, which gave me a heart attack. Last year was such a disappointment, but probably expected. This year, I expect similar to last year. I know they've had a good pre-season, but in reality, pre-season means F all. Palace away is always a tough game for everyone, like you've mentioned. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm going to hate all of it, but I'm delighted it's back.
Finally, will Arsenal get top four this season? Some good signings, as you
No,
mentioned.
no, but they're going to have a good run at the Europa League. I think their best way into Europe is through that, and I think they should take that more seriously than trying to get top four. Because I think the teams like Spurs are too strong. They've signed brilliantly.
Yeah,
It has to be said. If you can beat them at home, get something off them away, you're going to be looking at stuff like that. Chelsea too strong. Liverpool and City are miles ahead. Yeah, sure, that's four teams. That's the top four already. Probably the same as last year, unfortunately.
yeah. I think it'll probably be between yourselves and Chelsea for fourth spot this season. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say Liverpool are going to win the league, even though I probably still think it's going to be City. But feck, I'm going to say it.
Looked good on Saturday. And I
Yeah,
know City are always slow starters, but if you think about it, I don't know who said it the other day, but they made a good point. They're going from playing a false nine to having a striker. It's
yeah,
like it's changing the whole dynamic for that they played for a whole year. So it's going to be tough.
yeah. I think Spurs will actually be a comfortable third. I don't think they'll seriously challenge top two, but I don't think they'll ever be in any danger of not making top four. Maybe something similar to Chelsea, maybe a little bit more consistent than Chelsea were, because Chelsea kind of dropped off after Christmas. And I think Arsenal would probably just miss out on fourth again. I think Chelsea might just have enough. And just quickly, my three relegated teams, I think, are going to be two of the new boys. I think Nottingham Forest will still struggle despite their summer signings. I think Fulham will still struggle because they just always do. And I think Brentford will suffer from second season syndrome, very similar
Yeah.
to Sheffield United a couple of years ago. And I think the loss of Christian Eriksen, because I think they were in big trouble until he came along last season. I'm not saying he single-handedly kept them up, but he was a big factor of that. I think that's a massive loss. And I think, like I said, teams will figure them out a little bit more. Second season syndrome. And I think they, along with Fulham and Nottingham Forest, will drop down.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think they're still a threat them losing Ivan Toney as well. If he goes, I think that's it. They'll probably go out and buy. I I mean, it's going to be tough for them, and yeah, I mean, in terms of relegated teams, you have to look at Fulham again. Just never seem to be able to get it right, and I think Bournemouth just that little bit too weak. I'd like to see Forest stay up. Whether they do or not, I don't know, but they might sneak 17th. I think Bournemouth and Fulham straight back down. They're just like
I
Norwich
think
and West
so.
Brom. One of those teams.
I think
Two of them.
Bournemouth have a lot of Premier League experience. I still think they've retained a good depth of their squad that was in the Premier League previously. And I think as well in the manager and Scott Parker, I think he would have learned from his previous two campaigns. No one of them was a very short campaign towards the end of the season when Fulham were basically gone anyway. But yeah, I just think one of the new boys are going to stay up. I just think Forest, I think it was a bit of a fairy tale story last year. I don't think that squad was really good enough to get promoted, but fair play to them. They've done it with a really good manager. I know they've recruited a nice bit over the summer, but I still think there's too much ground to make up there. And Fulham, as you said, like it just is always the way. But anyway, look, I know you have to go on and cover the League of Ireland show with Gary. I want to have a dinner before I head off to watch a junior hurling match here in Tipperary. So I'll leave it to it, and we'll chat again next week. And thanks for joining me, Paul.
Brilliant. Great to be back, Jer. Talk again soon, guys.